Hello and welcome to another Blender Cookie tutorial. This is David Ward, and in this tutorial we're going to go through and create a kind of a cutesy little turtle character. If you've seen the poor T-Rex videos that I've put up on YouTube, there's some requests to make a character similar to that, so I figured I'd go ahead and jump on the old cookie and show you kind of the same techniques. It'll be a little bit different, a little more stylized, but overall be roughly the same technique. So anyways, okay, so all that being said, tell you what, let me show you how to turn on the screencast keys if you're not familiar with that. If you'd like to, record a time lapse of you creating a model or, a tutorial yourself, you just go to File, User Preferences, and it's going to be under your add-ons. And then it's called the Screencast Key, so it's right there visible on my front screen when I go to add-ons. But if it's not on yours, you can just go into your search bar and just type Screencast. So I got my caps lock on. Turn that off and make sure that's checked. Mine's already checked, so go ahead and X that out and hit N. Scroll all the way down to Screencast Keys. It becomes a new option there on your Properties panel. And we'll just go ahead and hit Start Display, and then you scroll down a little further, and after you started the display, it gives you some options. I like to use instead of icon, I want to use text. And you can see kind of what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So it doesn't count every single keystroke. There's a few that I'll tell you about as I'm doing them, but for the most part, I'll give you a good idea of what buttons I'm pushing if I fail to say what buttons I'm pushing. So let's make the text a little bit smaller so it doesn't eat as much real estate there. Make it about 18. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. That's how you do that. And if you want to have your screencast keys on all the time, set it up the way you want, and then you can go to File, Save User Settings, and it'll save those to your settings each and every time. Or it won't save it each and every time. It'll be a permanent part of your settings until you upgrade to the next version of Blender. Then you might have to do it again. But until then, that'll always be on there unless you turn it off. So, all that being said, 2.5 minutes into it, let's get started on our little turtle character. Now it's going to be the same technique as usual, as I mentioned. Just a standard box modeling. So we'll just start with our default cube. Just tab into Edit Mode, W, Subdivide, and let's give it 3 cuts. And I would like to go ahead and delete this half of the vertices. So boom, delete vertices. You can see it cuts it right in half. And we'll come over here to our, looks like a little wrench there, a little crescent wrench. Click on that. We're going to add a mirror modifier to it. And tell you what, while we're at it, let's go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier. And we'll go ahead and give that viewport of 2, because that's what it's going to render at. While you're modeling, it's good to be able to see your highest resolution, unless you prefer to low poly model and then look at it, but I like to see what's going on as I'm doing it. So I like to set that to 2, and then once you get to where you're animating it and things like that, it makes your computer run a little faster if it doesn't have to calculate as many vertices and faces and all that. So you can set it down back to 1 or just turn it off altogether, but it'll still render out at 2 when you go to render time. So let's go and set that to 2, and I want to turn the visibility here. Let's tab out of edit mode. And shading, we'll go ahead and set that to smooth so it doesn't have those jagged faces. If it's set to flat, you can see the jagged faces, but turn that to smooth. So, okay. Now, on our mirror modifier, let's go ahead and set that to clipping. And what that does, if we tab into edit mode, is clipping makes everything where it meets the center of the mirror. I guess you could call it the surface of the mirror. I don't know. It makes that kind of stuck to the middle. So you can't move it. You can move it up and down and back and forth, but you can't move it left and right. It's stuck to itself. It's stuck there in the middle. That's what the clipping does. Now, if you have a problem to where, say that's turned off, say you're extruding something and it comes out like that, just turn off clipping. Right now it's turned off, but for example, if you have it turned on, you extrude in and it's like that. Just turn that off and then move it back into place and then turn it back on. And move it back to the middle, and boom, it sews it right back together. So, piece of cake. All right, so let's select everything. Let's get this smoothed up a little bit. Now, we could go in through here and select each corner and smooth it up manually, but there's a quicker way. We just select everything and go W, Smooth, and then you can tell it how many times you want it to smooth. 10's probably fine, so we'll just smooth it 10 times. And we'll have a nice roundish, not quite spherical, but pretty close, rounded shape there. So this is going to be our little turtle's head. Let's move it up above the ground surface grid there. And let's kind of just start stylizing it. Now we'll go into edit mode. And I'd like to have the corners of the head smoothed out a little bit more. So let's select all these and tell you what, down here as well. And we'll just go smooth again. Oops. Okay. It's still set to smooth 10 times, but now that I've got it smoothed out the way I want, I don't want it smoothed that many times because obviously it's way too much. So let's scroll that all the way down to 1, and maybe we'll bump it up to 2, and then just move that. Tell you what, let's turn on the proportional editing. Now what proportional editing does is it takes your selection and it kind of has a fall off, kind of a gradual fade out from the selection as to what's being manipulated by your actions. Like right now I'm moving it, so you can see the white circle is kind of the boundaries of the gradual fade out of the proportional editing. If I scroll my mouse wheel up and down, I can change those borders. If I scroll it down, it makes it more focused on what's actually selected, versus if I make it bigger, it has more influence across, you know, whatever's inside the circle. So we'll just right click to cancel all of that out and just kind of scroll this just a little bit so it has a little bit of influence. We'll make it a little bit more of a head shape. So there we go. And I do apologize if some of you are watching this and thinking these are very basic controls. They are, but you know, for someone that hasn't seen any tutorials or, you know, is not real familiar with Blender, they might want to know about that kind of stuff. So anyways, okay, so let's get our head a little bit more turtle-y shaped. Let's start working on the mouth area. I'm going to grab this area. This is going to be the bottom of the chin. So let's move that down. And this will be the bridge of the nose area. So let's grab all this. And actually, oops. Let's move that down and have this be the bridge of the nose area. So it's going to be kind of a cartoonish character. The eyeballs will probably be more or less just stuck on here, stuck on the head, rather than actually being inside, you know, eyeball sockets. We'll have eye sockets to a degree, but they won't be, you know, realistic. So let's select all of these faces here, and this is going to be the mouth area. I know what you're thinking, that's a very large mouth, which it is, but yeah, we're going to make it look quite a bit smaller. So we'll extrude that out, and then we'll scale it down. Tell you what, let's turn off the proportional editing for now. I don't want to affect any of the surrounding because I want this only to be what I'm selected. That's all I want to be modified. So let's grab these middle ones, and this is going to be the... Tell you what, let's keep everything selected there, and we'll extrude in. This is going to be going into the mouth now. And the edge that we've created here will be the lips. Go ahead and scale that down. And like I said before, there's some things the screencast keys do not show. And that's one example. If you scale something and then you want to scale it along a certain axis, in this example, the Z-axis, which is the vertical axis, up and down, I hit S to scale, and now Z will scale only on the up and down axis, the vertical axis. But as you can see, it didn't show that in the screencast. So we'll scale that there, and then maybe scale it a little bit on the x-axis as well. And we'll go and extrude back in. Scale that quite a bit bigger now, so we can see that we have a definite thick lip there. So we're going to extrude everything in now. And maybe one more time. And now you can see the example I was talking about before with the mirror modifier. If we get things that are kind of stuck together where they don't need to be because of the clipping, go ahead and turn the clipping off and get our vertex select mode, and you can see that these kind of got glued together down here. So let's fix that up. Let's move that back. Okay, move those back, and then we'll go ahead and turn it back on and move them until they glue back together. There we go. working inside the mouth is a little awkward because you can't really see what you're doing that well. So one thing you can do while you're working inside the mouth is just turn off the mirror modifier altogether. Or don't turn it off, just turn off the visibility of it. So we'll just turn that at the eyeball. And what that does is just makes it invisible. So now we can see a halfway look, or a, what do they call it? I don't know. A look into it in any case. So we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so now we can turn on the proportional editing again, so we can control a little easier. Make things a little bit smoother. Select all these vertices here on the corner there inside the mouth and make sure we turn off that one, or deselect that one. And now we'll go ahead and smooth that a little bit. There we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and give him a tongue while we're in here. Go ahead and select, let's just grab these two vertices, or these two faces there. Control 3 will put us in the side view, the right side view. If we hit 3, it's in the left side. Control 3 is in the right side. And also, just while we're at it, if you hit, it's on your numpad. If you hit 1, that's the front view. Control 1 is the rear view. 7 is the top view. Control 7 is the bottom view. And then, like I said, 3 is the left view. Control 3 is the right view. Okay, so anyways, we got our faces selected there. Let's go ahead and select these ones as well. We've got 4 faces. Control 3. And let's extrude out. This is going to be the tongue. So we'll extrude out one more time. Tell you what, let's go ahead and hit smooth there. Sorry about that. I had a phone call interruption, but should be good to go now. Okay, since we smoothed that out, it made that more of a convex rather than concave. So it's more like an actual tongue rather than a weird looking thing coming out there. But as you can see, since we extruded out with the mirror modifier turned off, it went ahead and added a face there along the inside. So what we need to do is go ahead and select all of that and just go ahead and delete it. And then when we turn on the clipping again, or turn the mirror on, we'll need to select all these edges in here. And since all the other ones are lined up the way they should be, we can just select the whole center. So it's just hold down Alt and right click on one of the edges there and it selects the whole thing. And then we can just come into the front view and just kind of move it back and forth until things are where they should be. Looks like we got some more up there. There we go. Okay, everything looks all right. So now, let's kind of get this tongue straightened out. Looks a little odd. Select that, and let's go ahead and smooth it. Oops. W smooth. Okay. And then maybe we'll grab this edge here and that one and these guys and just drag it out a little bit better. And let's go to our side view. Tell you what, let's go ahead and turn off the mirror again just so we can see a little bit better. And let's select this loop there on the tongue and make it a little smaller. And let's add one more loop right there, just so we have a little bit more elbow room when it comes to editing the tongue here. Okay, so now we'll turn that back on. And again, we'll need to select the center, move everything until it glues together. Okay, so he's got a tongue now. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so it's not that big, but since we have so many loops on it, if we need to stretch it out at all, like when he's, like say he wants to lick his lips or something, we can do that. He's not going to be able to, do do like Toad on the X-Men and shoot it out and wrap it around anything or anything like that. But he'll be able to use it to, you know, talk and lick his lips or whatever. So, okay, now we got the inside of the mouth pretty well situated. Let's get the outside of the mouth situated. So we'll just start messing with the edge of the mouth there. Let's select the whole loop of the lips there and just go ahead and smooth those. Maybe scale them down a little bit. And tell you what, let's select the outer loop there and smooth that. Now there's some things called poles, and what a pole is basically a vertex that has edges coming to it, which pretty much I guess would be all vertices. But this particular vertex, in a normal quadrilateral model with squares, you know, no triangles, most vertices have 4 edges coming to them, but sometimes they have 5, and sometimes that'll make some weird artifacts visibly on your model on the subsurf. But as long as they're not in a heavily animated area, it shouldn't cause a problem. And some people don't like to use them, but in some cases there's really no way around it. Like for example, right now, I want this nice loop around the mouth. So we're going to have these 5-sided poles there on the, I guess, the cheekbone and then sort of around the chin. But since those aren't really animated that much, it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. But what will be animated is like around the mouth and the lips and things like that. So we want to make sure the topology is good around that. So let's add a couple of loops in here just so we can start getting this smoothed out and looking nice. Just grab these lips. Let's get those thickened up a little bit better. And it's just kind of starting to take on a kind of a turtle-ish shape. One thing I like to do when I'm creating things is, instead of trying to do everything in edit mode, as far as like what we're doing right now, sometimes I like to jump into sculpt mode. So just go down to where it says object mode, go up to sculpt mode. And there's a few different tools you can use. There's one that's called the brush, and that's basically just, if you have a really high polygon count model, you can just kind of draw hills and valleys with the brush tool. The grab tool does just that. It grabs whatever you, well, it doesn't do it on the mirrored side, but it just grabs whatever you click on and move your mouse. It grabs that part. And then the smooth does exactly that. It just smooths. You can just kind of spot smooth, as it were. So that's real handy when you're in the middle of creating your model. You can kind of use the edit mode and the sculpt mode to kind of work hand in hand and get a nice looking model going on. So let's grab the grab tool, make this radius a little bit bigger. I want to get the corners of the mouth here a little less round, a little sharper, like so. Maybe we'll drag the snout area up a little bit. Maybe a little sharper there in the beak area. And one other thing you can do while you're working, tell you what, let me go ahead and save this before I forget. And let's create a new folder here in my Blender files. New directory. And let's call this cute_turtle. I'll create that folder. I have so many folders in here. And we'll call this one cute turtle 01 for part 1. We're going to go ahead and save that. Okay. Now, as I'm about to say, when you're working in sculpt mode, it looks smooth, but the data is not being driven off of the subsurf. It's being driven off the base model. So if we to turn that off, you could see it's based on this mesh layout rather than this mesh layout. So what we can do, so we know where to grab, and it'll be easier to modify this, is going back into solid mode. Go to your object mode right here, or your object tab here in your panel over here. Click on that, and go down here to display, and go ahead and check wire, and that'll give you a wire view over your solid view. And then if we go to the modifiers, right now it's showing the wire view of the subsurf, but if we check the optimal display, it just shows the wire view of the base model. And now, like I said, that gives you a better idea of where you can grab with your grab tool while you're here in sculpt mode. So right now I just click right here in the middle of the snout, and I can grab that vertex there, versus if I wanted to try to grab right there, it's not going to grab anything. But if I grab right there on the corner, you can see it gives me a lot more control, and I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I got the nose, the snout, and the mouth looking pretty much kind of the way I'm wanting, but the rest of the head is a little bit too big. So let's tab into edit mode, and let's select all of this back here, and make sure your proportional fall off is turned on, but not too much, because we want to have a nice transition from the overall, the finished area, as it were, into the smaller area back here that we're going to. Let's make that a little smaller. And now it's kind of squared, so let's grab our smooth tool and come back in here and just kind of start touching this up. I kind of said it's going to be in the same style of the T-Rex. I guess it's going to be a little bit more detailed, but you can still use the same techniques. Okay, so now we got the nose and the mouth pretty well done. Let's create a place to put the eyeballs. Like I said, they're going to be kind of just stuck on, so let's just create some very subtle eye sockets. Just select these three faces there, and hit E to extrude, and then let's go ahead and turn off the proportional editing for now. Sorry, I had to pause. I had to take a sneeze break for a second. Okay, so we got those, and we hit E to extrude. Now we'll just hit S to scale them down. Scale it way down, and we're going to kind of do like we did on the mouth. We'll get this situated and then add some loops in here so we have a little bit more elbow room on the sculpting area. So let's bring that in, and then add a couple of loops in here. Let's grab that edge there. Let's go to vertex select mode. Move that up. Let's go ahead and turn proportional editing back on. Just notice I say go ahead a lot, don't I? Oh well. I'll just go ahead and keep saying it. Keep on saying it. Anyways. Alright, so let's jump into sculpt mode again and get the smooth tool is still selected. So let's just run that in there. Get that smoothed out. And tell you what, let's grab these, the center vertices in here, and make sure our fall off's turned on. And since it's a turtle, let's make it look a little, I don't know, I want to say nerdish, but that might be offensive. Hey, I'm a nerd, I don't care. But let's make the eyes a little bit further apart. Maybe rotate them forward a little bit. Okay, so you're saying, I know you're saying it's not very turtleish looking, but we're not done yet. We're still working. Normally in my tutorial series, I like each part to be roughly 20 minutes long, but as you can see, we're past that now. So we'll shoot for 30 minutes, at least on this part. Maybe we'll go back down to 20 in other parts, but for now, we'll just go with 30. Okay, so this is not his eyes. This is just the general eye socket. Now we're going to add. Let's put our 3D cursor right there, and the way we do that is select everything we want to put it, or everything we around where we want to put it. So I want to put it right in there. So I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to say cursor to select it. And it's going to put our 3D cursor, as you can see, the red and white circular with the crosshairs on it. That's our 3D cursor. If I was to click over here, you can see it a little easier. But I want it right there, so we'll go Shift S, cursor to selected. And now I'm going to grab that vertex right there in the middle. Go ahead and delete that. So you can see we actually have a hole in the head for the eye socket. But now I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. and it's way too big. So let's change some of these settings over here before we go any further. Segments, let's make that 12. And rings, we'll also make that 12. And then the size, we can make that probably 0.25. That's still a little bit too big. Let's make it 0.15. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and this is going to be the eyelids. So let's select this loop right here, and we'll just delete that. Delete those vertices, and then select this. Control L selects the linked vertices. So Control L will you select one of them. Control L selects all of those on that particular piece of the mesh. So we'll just delete those. Okay, and now I want to select this edge here and extrude that. But I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to go ahead and right click, and let me turn off the proportional editing, and I'm going to scale it down. So basically have a semicircle with a lip to it, as it were. So let's add one more loop right there. Control R, and we'll just drag our mouse until it's pretty close to the edge, and then we'll have a nice sharp eyelid thing there. So, excuse me. Let's go back into edit mode. Select Control L. We'll select this whole eyelid, and I want to create the bottom lid now. So the way we do that is we can Shift D and just move it and rotate it until it matches up. But there's a more precise way. So if we Control Z, we'll go ahead and leave it duplicated. We've hit Shift D to duplicate. Actually, have we not? Okay, Shift D to duplicate, and just go ahead and click to left click to kind of lock that in, and then we'll hit the period button, and that rotates around the 3D cursor. So now we hit R to rotate 180 on the numpad, and it rotates it 180 degrees, which is based on the 360 degree rotation. And it rotates it halfway around, and you can see now we have a top and bottom eyelid. So it's kind of looking more like eyeballs there. Excuse me. But now I can see that the head needs to be adjusted a little bit more. So let's tab into edit mode and select some of these areas there around the eyeball. Go ahead and make sure that's connected. Oh, that's one other thing of the proportional fall off. There's two different options. There's one called connected and one enable. And when it's enabled, it pretty much takes, on a model, it takes all of the vertices that are within the bounds and moves them. Okay, if it's enabled. There we go. It moves everything. So see, he's moving the eyeballs too. I don't want that. I want the eyeball, or not the eyeball, but the eyelids. I want those to stay where they're at. So if you go to connected, it only moves the vertices that are actually on the same mesh as this selected vertex. So right now it's not going to move the eyelids at all. It's just going to move the head mesh around them. So that'll help you keep from accidentally messing up the perfect sphere that the eyeballs or the eyelids are in right now. So get that situated, and let's go ahead and come into object mode and go ahead and turn on smooth shading again. And since we added the eyelids mesh while we were in edit mode, it still had the flat shading on it, so just hit smooth shading again, and we'll smooth everything out. Now, pretty much got the basic shape of the head the way I want, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the wireframe view of the model. So let's go to our object tab again and just turn off the mirror, or the wire. Okay, so everything's looking decent, but it's really not the style I'd like. So tell you what, let's select a couple of vertices there on each eyelid, and then hit Control L to select everything. And now I'm going to turn on proportional editing, and I'm going to use the enabled mode because I want everything around these eyeballs to follow them. So just move them in, kind of get them, maybe scale them up quite a bit. Rotate them out some, maybe. Okay, so now let's go back to connected and kind of just start smoothing the head around the new shape And I'll tell you what, let's go back to Sculpt Mode. Be a little easier. Smooth is already selected. So let's just come in here, gently touch this up in here. Okay, now one more thing. I'd like to give them a little bit of a brow. Just raise these up a little bit. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty decent for our part one. A couple of more things. I'd like to make the back of the head come up a little bit more. Oops. We're still rotating around the 3D cursor, so to get away from that, hit Control, comma, and then it goes back to rotating around the selection. So let's move that back down. Maybe have the back of the head come down a little bit more. Okay, so that's looking a little more like I had in my mind. Move this up some. Smooth that out just a tad. And then maybe bring this forward just a little bit. And it seems a little tall. This is the bad part about making tutorials. I'll see something and I want to just keep playing with it and kind of just keep touching it up, keep making it, look a little bit different. And you're sitting there watching like, hurry up and finish. So you lose a lot of the free creativity, where you just kind of just play with it. So feel free to take as much time as you want to play with this and make it look the way you want. Tell you what, let me add one more loop right there, just so I can get a little bit more definition between the head and the brow, right there like that. And then we'll use the smooth to kind of touch that up there on the nose. Okay, like I said before, we're shooting for 30 minutes instead of 20, but we're past that now. So let me just tweak this up just a little bit, and we will call part one done. So we've got some square lips going on down here. And just give him a little bit of a chin. Okay. We might mess with the overall look a little bit more in part two, but for part one, we're going to call that done. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and that's going to be all for part one. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in part two. We'll go on further with the creation of this little guy. So see you in part two.